Stop hunting. Start finding. Choose the AT&T Real Yellow Pages with complete ads and up-to-date local listings to find just what you need.
Travel to Spain or Orlando Avenue. The finest restaurant featuring cuisine from Spain is open for business, lunch, and pleasure. El Bodegón, our very own 4-star restaurant, is open for business, lunch, and dinner. This is a true gem when it comes to real Spanish cuisine, featuring dishes like paella. El Bodegón also has a great wine selection. Enjoy a 4-star cuisine from Spain today for lunch or dinner at El Bodegón.
My universe is everything I imagine. I want to be a graphic designer. How can I get there? The Academy. It fits my busy lifestyle, and I can learn firsthand from instructors who've been there and know what it takes. Hey, my destiny is a career doing what I love, my way. My choice, my school. The International Academy of Design and Technology.
You imagine? We can get you there. Call 1-800-932-2900. 1-800-932-2900.
Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to this week's edition of Hispanic Speak Out TV, brought to you by Bright House Cable, every Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m. Follow us every week. We have some interesting talk shows that you would not only get good knowledge from, but would enjoy. Tonight, I'm here with a long-standing community leader, military person who just returned from service, and he has an extraordinary resume from the White House all the way down, trickle down to grassroots community affairs. His name is Dennis Freytes. How are you, Dennis?
I'm alive and kicking, like they
right?
say. And
well,
it's a pleasure to be in your program. I think this is a great program that's very valuable to the community.
Well, you know, Dennis, you just came back from military service, and I was surprised that when you went the first time. I mean, I know that you're Lieutenant Colonel, you have a background in the military, but I thought that was all over for you until about 2 years ago. You said, no, I'm going back to serve in the military. It surprised the hell out of me. Where did you go and what did you do?
Well, you know, I'm a patriot, and I believe in service to our American flag. So this time around, you know, I've done many things with my career. I've commanded infantry units, special forces, airborne, and in this time I commanded engineer and medical units in different capacities. So I was with Army South, Southcom, and we had a area of focus of 52 countries. We did everything from disaster relief to renovating schools, renovating orphanages, to medical treatment. We treated over 100,000 patients last year on Beyond the Horizon exercise. I also did counterterrorism and counter-narco-terrorism.
I was about to ask you about that.
I did that initially.
What was the role in the counterterrorism and the narco?
Well, I was on the general staff, and my general commanded an army, and I was on his staff, and I was the person in charge of counterterrorism to coordinate counter-narco-terrorism for the Central America, South America, and the Caribbean.
What does that actually entail?
Because we're in see, people need to understand we're in a world war on terrorism, and terrorism can happen even in our backyard. It happened in Fort Hood. It happened in New York. It happened in the Pentagon, in Central America, South America. So it entailed coordinating policy. We support special operations forces and other classified level things that we did.
I can't get any secrets out of you, huh?
No.
All right, so now you're back after doing all of this, and what's going on? What do you intend to do with your life for the next?
Well, after being a patriot and having served the United States Army, our nation, our flag, I consider myself a community servant, a community workhorse. Like you know before, I was involved in many community projects with seniors, children, family, youth, veterans. See, I think that patriots need to fight for the good of all. Family, community, USA, and humanity. And I was involved, I've been appointed by the governor, by different mayors of both political parties. I've been confirmed by the Florida Senate twice. I've been on boards, Seniors First Chair, trustee of Valencia Community College. So I'm back into that, into a community service. Plus also, I want to fight for a just cause.
When did you come back, actually?
I came back about 2 months ago.
So you're already jumping in.
I'm jumping in, and I mean, that just cost us right there, and we got to break Puerto Rico's territorial status and ensure equal American citizenship.
Well, that's one of the reasons why you're on the show, okay? Naturally, first of all, most people are completely ignorant about Puerto Ricans. And with all of the TV coverage and constant battering that goes on about the border, the Arizona border, the border of New Mexico, everybody in a large number of people, I'm not saying everybody, but a large percentage of people get the impression that Hispanics just arrived here and are storming the borders in the last couple of years, you know? And I know that because most people get indoctrinated by mass media, that's the image that they have of Hispanics, that we just arrived here, when it's not true.
That's correct.
And Puerto Rico is an example of that. Why don't you bring us, talk a little bit about Puerto Rico and its relationship with the U.S.
Okay, it's very important right now because we just had today, I was invited to be at the White House at the hearings on Puerto Rico status. There's a task force that President Obama has, and it started with President Clinton, President Bush, which came out with a task force report on Puerto Rico status, which I have right here, and I use. And also, we also had the U.S. House just pass H.R. 2499, which is a plebiscite to allow the people in Puerto Rico, it's really two plebiscites, but there might be some amendments in the Senate, for them to choose a status because they've never been consulted since 1899. They've never been consulted by Congress. So that's going on. Now the Senate has the bill. They're looking at amendments to it, and not to go into too much depth, it just takes the whole half hour just on that bill. So you have the House, the Senate, the White House, all talking about the Puerto Rico issue. But then the media is silent. Yeah. There's not much out there.
What are the options for Puerto Rico?
Well, that is the $1 million question, because that's what we want. We want Congress to define the constitutional acceptable options under the Constitution of the United States that we have right now. And Puerto Rico right now is being called a Commonwealth, which in Spanish translated to Free Associated State, which that is an oxymoron because Puerto Rico is not free, Puerto Rico is not associated, Puerto Rico is not a state, or Estado Libre Asociado in Spanish. And the Constitution of the United States is very clear. The Congress shall have the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States, because Puerto Rico is an unincorporated territory. It's a possession of the United States. So there's a lot of demagoguery going on. So we want to go through that demagoguery that appeals to emotions, that appeals to prejudices, that discriminate. And we want to bring out the facts that I have right here and talk about constitutional options. To make a long story short, to me, there are three really constitutional options. To be the current status, which is not Commonwealth. Under the Constitution, there's no Commonwealth.
There's no
Constitution
provision for
is
it.
No provision. It's very clear. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. I brought in a lot of papers here that says the same thing. There's a Supreme Court decision in the insular cases that says Puerto Rico is an unincorporated territory. That determination from the Supreme Court has never been knocked down. So basically, you have people in Puerto Rico trying to camouflage the territory, and that's the first thing, is to tell the truth, into Commonwealth. So when we speak of Puerto Rico, we should say U.S. territory of Puerto Rico, because Commonwealth is not a status. It's a local government that Congress permitted under the Federal Relations Act in 1950, but it's not self-determined government. It's just for internal. Congress still controls the Constitution of Puerto Rico, the laws. Federal courts are over the Puerto Rico courts, controls the border, currency, security, defense, everything. So Puerto Rico, under the eyes of the Constitution of the United States, and so says it the President's Task Force report, so says it a congressional report that I got here, and other documents that I have state that. And so we need to bring Congress to tell the truth. So basically, one option is current status and define it. We want the definition of the options so people are not fooled into voting for something that is not. And so we have the territorial, statehood, and then you have independence being the other option.
So Congress has misnamed the situation in Puerto Rico. They gave it a label that really the Constitution does not allow for.
And you're absolutely correct. And then the people, it's a fig leaf to camouflage the true territorial nature of Puerto Rico. And then when you have politicians, you know how they are, they go each and every way. Then you have the politicians in Puerto Rico took Commonwealth and translated it to free associated state. How can you be free? How can you be associated? And how can you be a state? When I already read you the definition of the Constitution, Puerto Rico is under the will of the United States Congress and the federal government.
Okay, what's the second position?
Well, you asked me about the options. So current status, which is territory, and should be defined as such. Statehood, then independence, which is a complete sovereign nation. So the only two non-territorial options are statehood or independence. Now they came up with a fourth option. They call it free association. And
who is they?
There's a group in Puerto Rico because the Partido Popular Democrático, Popular Democratic Party, wants to keep the ELA, Estado Libre Asociado, or Free Associated State, and enhance it to be sovereign, to keep all the benefits and not all the responsibilities. You know, like I think one of the senators said, eat all the, have free beer and barbecue. And that was mentioned at the White House, at the Senate hearings by the governor of Puerto Rico, which is Fortuño. So basically, we have a group that is trying to maintain the impasse for their hidden agenda, and others that want to ensure we have equal American citizenship under the American flag. Because I ask you, Danny, do you believe, are you for equal U.S. citizenship no matter where you reside on American soil? And that's a rhetorical question, because we have veterans today that are fighting on the battlefield, that are dying. We have veterans in the past, the 65th Infantry Regiment, in which we have a picture that died for our flag, and Puerto Ricans have served in a higher proportion than the majority of the states in all wars from 1899, when the first company of infantry, to when the 65th Infantry, First World War, Second World War, Korea. And by the way, you know, I can summarize it with this note. Let me just read this. General of the Armies Douglas MacArthur, in praising the 65th Infantry Regiment from Puerto Rico, said the Puerto Ricans of the gallant 65th Infantry on the battlefields of Korea, by valor, determination, and a resolute will to victory, give daily testament to the invincible loyalty to the United States. They write a brilliant record of achievement in battle, and I am proud indeed to have them in this command. I wish we might have many more of them. These guys can't vote. These guys don't have just representation. People that are fighting today that are residents of Puerto Rico, they're not in Puerto Rico. They're on the battlefield. They're U.S. citizens. They can't vote. There's no consent of the governed. I say, if there's no consent of the governed, there's tyranny.
Okay. So basically,
I get passionate.
I know, I can see that. You know, that was about a 5-minute sprint. But what you're basically saying is we have Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico serving in Afghanistan and Iraq and other parts of the world where there's conflict, and those Puerto Ricans cannot vote.
That's correct.
Okay. Vote for what? For president of the United States?
They can't vote for their commander-in-chief. Puerto Rico doesn't have, it should have 6 representatives, or 6 or 7, and 2 senators.
All right, so they don't have any representation as far as Congress or United States Senate?
No, they don't.
And they cannot vote for president?
They can't vote for
president.
president.
Yet they go and they fight, and they're part of the process.
Yes, and die for the American flag. You know why? Because the original Constitution, the territorial clause, was written in the original Constitution in 1787, 89. It was ratified. So it's an original. when that original clause was written, women couldn't vote, blacks couldn't vote, you had to be a property owner, you had a whole bunch of things. So it was anti-democratic, it was discriminatory. Then you have the 27 amendments to the Constitution, the first 10 being the Bill of Rights, and the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which is also a due process, and the 5th Amendment is also a due process amendment. I mean, original clause. So you have this Constitution, and also that the territorial clause, our founding fathers, you know, back then you had a lot of territories within the continental United States. So basically that occurred. So you have a clash right now, which is a group issue. The Constitution that states Congress has the control of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a possession. With the Bill of Rights, with the amendments to the Constitution, which says equal citizenship. Now, what is supreme? To me, the fundamental thrust of our nation is equality, equal civil rights, no matter where you reside, because Puerto Rico is under the United States flag, under United States jurisdiction. So there is a dichotomy. On one hand, there are people that can vote. On the other hand, they're not. It's incongruent to say that we have equality for all American citizens when we don't.
What do the people in Puerto Rico want? In other words, the last time that this went around,
okay, there have been four.
And this time.
Okay, there have been 4 plebiscites in Puerto Rico. There have been local, and they haven't been sanctioned by the Congress. So thus, those plebiscites carry no force for change. Mm-hmm. And in those plebiscites, there was always almost an evenness between pro-statehood and the actual current status. But the current status was not defined as a territory. It was defined as a commonwealth, which is not it's a federal relationship. It's not a status.
Right.
Even you go to the newspaper today, you got reporters in the Orlando Sentinel and other places calling the status of commonwealth. That's not a status. That's a federal relationship. Congress can take that away in a minute. The only status. So basically, those internal plebiscites, the last one being 11 years ago, did not solve anything. But today, the majority of the Puerto Ricans voted for a pro-statehood governor, pro-statehood resident commissioner that represent them. That's Commissioner Pierluisi, which I was with on Saturday, and represents 4 million people. And he has no vote in Congress, but he is in Congress representing them. They also voted a pro-statehood Senate, pro-statehood House, and the majority of the mayors. The Puerto Rico House voted, and the Puerto Rico Senate voted a resolution supporting 2499. So if you ask me today, the people in Puerto Rico want a non-territorial status, because even the PPD people don't like the current status. Even though they didn't call it territory, they want to enhance it. So basically, the majority want a non-territorial status.
And how do you see it going in the Congress of the United States now, the hearings?
The hearings...
Is the Congress neutral? Is it pro-statehood? I mean, you must have a feeling for this.
The Congress is... It depends who you talk in Congress. At least one positive step is that the House passed by a large measure, because in 1998 they passed by 1 vote, but it's always locked up in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And right now that's Bill 2499, which is called Puerto Rico Democracy Act. The Puerto Rico Democracy Act is now, they just had hearings last week, and in the Senate they said they were so busy with all the other issues mm-hmm. that they might just do a resolution, and they might define 4 acceptable mm-hmm. But they haven't determined that. We got to call and tell them we want definitions on each of this, because if you leave it to the Puerto Rican people, everybody will have their own definition. So, but it's the duty of Congress to decolonize. Territories are tri-dinosaurs of our anti-democratic and segregated past, and it's the duty of Congress, you know, under the Constitution, the original clause, to do that. And it's the duty of Congress to ensure equal American citizenship. And I think the best way to resolve this without an amendment to the Constitution is in a fair plebiscite where the people vote directly. But then the people in Puerto Rico don't, you know, the parties like the PPD, there's no consensus of the process to follow. And it's Congress' duty to say, hey, here are the 4 acceptable options. You're the state, independence, current status, which is not resolving the problem. We're talking about territories are supposed to be a transition status. Puerto Rico was invaded by the United States, taken by force in 1898. After 112 years, it's the oldest territory in the history of the nation without equal rights. Congress in 1917, under the Jones Act, imposed U.S. citizenship. Hear this. Congress went in, there was World War I going on. Congress said, well, under the Jones Act, you guys are going to be now U.S. citizens. They did not hold a plebiscite to let the people directly vote on it. Now they had their, their representatives and all, but this is such an important issue that the people should have been allowed to vote. And you know why people in Puerto Rico don't pay certain taxes? Because they pay certain federal taxes, Social Security and all that, but there's some payroll taxes they don't pay because Congress imposed it on them. In 112 years, Congress has never allowed the people of Puerto Rico to vote in a plebiscite to change the status.
Wow.
And that's history, that's facts.
Why do you think psychologically there are groups in Puerto Rico that do not want statehood?
Well, everybody has their own beliefs. Independence normally gathers maybe 4% of the vote.
Well, independence
and it's gone down to 3%.
That's totally madness. Independence is totally madness.
But there has been so much misinformation that we need to educate people. They talk about cultural problems. They talk about Spanish. They talk about you're going to lose your language. Puerto Ricans are encouraged to learn English, which I think they should. But this is a democracy. People speak what they want to speak. And the United States speaks more Spanish than Spain. The United States speaks more Spanish than Puerto Rico.
Well, that's a big issue here in the United States now. Bilingualism, and there's a lot of people in the United States that are very upset, maybe because of the immigration dilemma, that people should speak English here. It's part of that. But on the other side, Puerto Ricans feel that they want to maintain their culture, and they want to maintain, that's part of their pride issue.
See, our cultures are intertwined. There's no, it's a Western culture. Tell me, religious belief in God, is that wrong with our culture? Hard work, is that wrong with our culture? Raising a family, is that wrong with our culture? Loyally defending the American flag, because the evidence is there. MacArthur said it. Everybody says it. We have 4 Medal of Honor winners. Is that wrong with our culture? They're loyal American citizens. Is that wrong with? You see, they try to put it in a way that it's a foreign culture. It's not. It's a subculture. Like you go to Texas and they like to wear their cowboy boots and lasso a couple of cattle and all that, like their horses. And you go to California, it's something else. Puerto Rico has their uniqueness, yet they're part of the United States.
We don't have one Puerto Rican fast food chain. That's the problem. Because the Chinese have it, you have Italian, and then talking about Roy Rogers is cowboy, right?
Yeah.
We need a Puerto Rican fast food chain.
So those are excuses, and many people are either bigots, malinformed, or demagogues.
Well, that's a small percentage. Yeah. I think as people become informed, they're going to see the reality that this makes a lot of sense.
Yes, it does.
It certainly makes a lot of sense. And what most people don't understand is that Hispanics is an umbrella term.
Yes.
Under that umbrella term, there are many different groups that live under that umbrella or designated. You have the Mexicans, again, the border dilemma, which has nothing to do with Puerto Ricans, because Puerto Ricans can come and go at will just by jumping on a plane and flying into New York, because they are U.S. citizens. So there is no passport required. They have been citizens. What was the date that Puerto Ricans officially became citizens?
In 1917, under the Jones Act.
It was the Jones Act. So there's a lot of ignorance about the subject in the United States in general.
That's why I salute you, because with these types of programs where we have the facts here, and I can challenge anybody, I've got the facts right here, and we need to educate, and you giving us the opportunity to do that is very noble of you.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't consider myself a noble person. I'm a community activist, and I do what I think is right after reviewing information. I don't shoot from the hip. I actually like to become informed, but more importantly, bring informed people here to talk about their issues. And this is a very, very big issue because the major population in Central Florida is Puerto Rican.
Yes, it is.
By far.
And there are about 800,000 Puerto Ricans in Florida.
Yeah. So Puerto Ricans
Puerto
really,
Rican Americans. Okay?
Puerto Rican Americans.
Like Texans
But you know what?
American,
you want to know something? I use the word Puerto Rican because I understand that they're citizens.
And
so
Florida,
I don't have to qualify
70%
that.
of the people from Florida is from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now, you got to have loyalty to your state, and that's a test, and you got to have loyalty to the U.S. Constitution. And beyond that, this is a democracy. We got to encourage English as a common language.
Mm-hmm. I have a little, some information here that talks about Puerto Ricans, and you brought to light this information, and let me read it to you. In 1779, Puerto Ricans fought in the American Revolutionary War under the command of Bernardo de Galvez, named by Field Marshal of the Spanish Colony Army in North America. Puerto Ricans participated in the capture of Pensacola, the capital of the British colony of West Florida, and the cities of Baton Rouge and Mobile. Puerto Rican troops under the leadership of Brigadier General Ramon Castro helped defeat the British army of 2,500 soldiers and British warships in Pensacola. Now that is something that I would guarantee you, not even 99% of Puerto Ricans know.
Let me tell you, a good thing to do is go to a search engine like Google and put that in, and you start to getting facts. And I encourage everybody to educate yourself by doing that.
Well, you know something? It's certainly been enlightening, and the show went like that, but we'd like to bring you back because it's a subject that we want to put some heat on, okay? I thank you, Dennis, for coming, and we will bring you another show about this, the Puerto Rico status. We want to follow up with the congressional hearings, and I want you to come back and tell us the result of that, okay? This is Danny Ramos from Hispanic Speak Out TV. We'll see you next week. Don't forget, Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m., and you can go to our website, HispanicSpeakOut.tv. We'll talk to you next week.
My universe is everything I imagine. I want to be a graphic designer. How can I get there? The Academy. It fits my busy lifestyle, and I can learn firsthand from instructors who've been there and know what it takes. Hey, my destiny is a career doing what I love, my way. My choice, my school. The International Academy of Design and Technology.
You imagine we can get you there. Call 1-800-932-2900. 1-800-932-2900.